Everybody caught up to speed, but welcome to Sprint Demos for Sprint 46, codename Palladium. This is for Fleet version 4.74. We demo features for each product group and then list improvements and bug fixes. We always read the user story aloud before showing the demo and explain why it's important to our customers and what problem does it solve for them. And we always show where the documentation for the feature lives during the demo. And with Luke not being here, I'll be hosting, but off to Jordan to start off the MDM group.
Hey, I've got a quick video demo. Let me get it to sharing real quick. Actually, give me 1 minute. Let me make sure I share right away for video. Okay. So this first feature, we had a lot of help from several team members on this. So this was me, Sarah, Gabriel, and Magnus. And as mentioned, I've got a quick video demo. Hopefully this shows up good. We're going to do a quick demo of the new Hydrant CA and the new experimental request certificates API. Our user story is as a client platform engineer managing Linux workstations and using Hydrant as my CA. I want to write a script that hits a Fleet API to request a certificate so that I can build a custom workflow or script to deliver certificates that connect my end users to Wi-Fi and VPN in a matter of seconds. And so there's a lot of behind the scenes changes that went into this particular story, in addition to the changes in the UI where we'll add the new CA type. We have not added Fleet variable support for this yet, so these can't be included in configuration profiles just yet. However, as mentioned, we have this new experimental request certificate API, which can be used in script-based workflows and currently only supports Hydrant. However, it's an experimental API, and future iterations will add support for more CA types. And additionally, future iterations of the product will add support for Hydrant CAs in Fleet variables, so we can add them to certificate profiles and things like that. So when we look at some of the API changes here and YAML changes, you'll see that whereas previously CAs were listed under integrations like Zendesk and Jira, they're now actually listed under org settings, certificate authorities, and that's not just a GitOps change. This is actually a change to the API, because we've now moved them out of the app config JSON that was growing larger and larger and into their own endpoints and dedicated database tables. And the reason for that was just maintainability. As we add more CA types and things like that, we wanted to move them out so that it was easier to maintain and have separate code for the configuration. We've got a usage guide that talks about how to set up Hydrant and connect Fleet to Hydrant, and how to use this new request certificate API. And we'll take a look in Fleet. You can see what this new CA type looks like. If I go to add CA and choose Hydrant, you can see it requests a name, a URL, and then a client ID and secret, which you can get from your Hydrant setup. So without further ado, let's take a look at the actual request certificate API. So here's a simple script. It provides an IDP token. Now, the IDP functionality is optional, and I'll show an example of using this without IDP functionality in a moment. But essentially, with IDP, when you provide this IDP information, it will actually verify that the IDP token is an active token for your OAuth server, and verify that the username in that token matches the username in the CSR. And so you can see my script here is pretty simple. It generates a private key. It generates a CSR using that private key. It creates a JSON blob that includes the CSR, some OAuth credentials, and then sends that to the Fleet server using our pretty standard authentication pattern. This is just defined outside of the script. And so we'll make a quick request, and this will show you the request that's sent and what we get back from the server. And so you can see that took a few seconds, but what happened there was that it created a certificate request. It sent that along with the IDP information to the server, and then the server verified that IDP information and contacted Hydrant for certificate signing and returned this certificate. Likewise, we can run this without IDP functionality. So you can see this just includes a CSR. That script is exactly the same, except that it doesn't include the IDP information in the request. And you can see we get back a certificate, this time with no IDP information required. So there's no checking on this. As mentioned, this is an experimental API, so it's likely to change in future iterations as we learn more about customer requirements and how they want to use it. Thank you very much.
All righty. Thank you, Jordan. And I believe, is it Gabe, or are you doing the next one as well?
I'm going to do the next one. Give me just a moment to get the demo pulled up for that. So I meant to close my video and accidentally closed my actual screen with the demo up. So just one moment.
Those sound like pretty light demo gremlins.
Yes, they are. It could be a lot worse. So this next feature is a follow-up for a feature we released a few sprints ago to add support for the Mac OS user channel. And in this case, we want to surface which local user account gets user scope profile. So our user story is, as an IT admin, I want to see which local user account will get user scope profile so that I can know which user will get the OS settings enforced by profiles. And so really why this is important, it's a really simple little UI change, but the way that the rules work for like which user gets a user channel created and such in Mac OS land are kind of confusing. So it's like the user that installs the enrollment profile or the first user that sets up the system. And so in most cases, no other user will get a user channel, and Fleet only supports one user channel at this time. And so it's not super clear on the system even which user gets the user channel until you go looking at like their profiles output and such. And so what we've done is just add that information directly to the OS settings modal. And so you can see if I hover over this, it says scope to local user account Jordan. These others are all device scope profiles, like we've always used before. And you can see that matches, the local username in the system. As George mentioned, this was a feature that Gabe Hernandez and I worked on. So that is all.
All righty. Next up, we've got Magnus, also with another video. I actually don't see him in the list of participants, so I will go ahead and present this. All righty. We've got add full name IDP host vital as a variable. In configuration profiles, as an IT admin, I want to specify an end user's full name as a variable in a configuration profile so that I can surface the name when I run a script that touches the plist, the configuration profile deployed.
So this is the demo recording of this story that I worked on, which is, as an IT admin, I want to specify an end user's full name as a variable in a configuration profile so that I can surface the name when I run a script that touches the plist, the configuration profile deployed. So with that, I have a new Mac waiting enrollment over here. Sorry, this one is annoying. I have created a example user in Okta as my IDP assignment, and I've assigned it like Skim and my Fleet IDP, and I've set up the correct IDP for the automatic enrollment. So I will go ahead and enroll this device and log into the IDP with my example account. And I will enter a code from the mobile app here, as well as the password. That should sign in and then install the profiles that is currently set up for the team. And then I will skip here until skip back. So as you can see here, the username and the full name from the IDP solution has been picked up, and the full name is the given name plus the family name, so first name plus last name. Can also see that, so we can now see that we got to the local user account and we're logged, of course, to the names that is from the IDP solution. I'll go ahead and create the local user account. I'll now go ahead and upload this configuration profile to my Mac device, which is a skep profile configuration, which contains my new full name IDP fleet variable. I've gone ahead and added it in the name itself. So we can see it in this list and it should update. So I will come back once it's here. Right, so now the cert popped up. You can see it's called skep proxy cert, and Magnus MDM is the name, which means the fleet variable was substituted correctly. I'll now showcase that by updating the user, and the skim gets sent through. It will also resend the profile to deliver a new one with the correct values in it. So if I go ahead and say Manos update MDM, I save this, should now also be able to see that it should actually go back into reinforcing and pending, and I will come back once the new profile gets delivered with the new name. And now we can see here that the skep proxy cert has updated to my new full name from the IDP solution. So that was my demo for this story.
All righty. And then next up, I believe we have Carlo with his first feature.
That's right. All right. Thank you very much. Let me get set up here. User story is, as an IT admin who's managing Android hosts, I want to see disk space, NDM server status, and when my Android enterprise is disconnected from Google Workspace so that I can better understand my hosts and if everything is connected to Fleet. So this set of changes really centers on two key UI improvements. The first is showing disk space information in the UI, and the second is messaging around the scenario where I go into the Google side and delete my enterprise. How does that show up in Fleet? So we'll jump over to Fleet and take a look at that now. The first thing you'll notice is that we have this disk space available column for the Android device, showing disk space available in the same way we show it for other types of hosts. And then when I go to the host details page, we also see the same information reflected here. And because Android devices support different kinds of storage, we just have a tooltip here that explains that. And the second part of this is when I go into my settings, integrations, MDM, in Android, we can see it's turned on, and I have my enterprise ID showing here. But what happens when I go in and delete my enterprise? I'll go ahead and do that and show what that looks like. Okay, so we can see that the enterprise has been removed on this side. And we see we get an error banner that shows Android MDM is turned off. So if I go into my settings, I can see Android is off and the button to turn it on is enabled. So I'll go ahead and turn this back on again. Reconnect. And you can choose to reuse the same enterprise again, or you can create a new one. In this case, I'm just going to reuse the same one that I used before. And we get our success message. The error banner goes away, and we can see that Android MDM is turned on. And when I go into edit, I can see my enterprise ID appears as expected. So that's all for this set of changes. Thank you very much. So for this.
Awesome. Thank you, Carlo. And then we have Gabe with just a brief description of a public API endpoint that was modified from a contributor endpoint.
There we go. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, so this was this story right here. Basically, this was adding a new public API endpoint to batch apply custom OS profiles, or OS settings we have here, but also known as configuration profiles. So the story is, as a client platform engineer, I want to hit a public fleet API endpoint to batch apply configuration profiles so that I can build a custom GitOps workflow that doesn't use Fleet's contributor API endpoint. So yeah, basically the change is we had a contributor API endpoint that already existed that allowed for, this is it right here. Oh, sorry, that's the old one. This is it right here. That allowed for profiles to be batch set and modified. This new endpoint is now, it's not a contributor endpoint, meaning that contributor endpoints, I think there's kind of like no guarantee that they're going to be stable. Sometimes they change depending on the functionality. But with this becoming a public API endpoint, basically customers can rely on this endpoint for batch modifying custom or configuration profiles. So yeah, really what's changed is the endpoint is now configuration profile/batch. Some of the response payload is different. So instead of profiles, it's now called configuration profiles. And they're still able to target hosts based off of the different kind of label variants. So include a host that has all of these labels, has any of the labels, or exclude any labels. And yeah, that's about it.
All righty, thank you, Gabe. And that concludes the MDM features. So going over to Sharon for orchestration.
Thank you, George, and thank you, MDM team. We will start our features with Victor presenting the new ability to use automations and policy automations and webhook automations on Node team. Victor, please take it.
Thank you, Sharon. So in this story, as an IT admin, I want to configure webhook and policy automations for Node team, which is the default team that hosts go into, so that I can be alerted to hosts failing Node team policies. So this is in this feature. So roughly, I'm going to do a quick demo. In Node team, you can now go to manage automations, and there's the other drop down here that was not here before. And if we click it, we have our workflows here. So these workflows is if you have a policy that's failing, then once a day, it's either going to be, that information is either going to be sent to a webhook, or if you have Jira or Zendesk configured, you can set it to be sent to file a ticket in those tools. And this is, I think, the first time we have a config where we have a config for all teams, for the default Node team, and for each individual team. So just to demonstrate this here, so we have the config, and you see the policies, only the Node team policies show up here. So if I wanted a webhook here, I would go to all teams and set it up in the all teams. So in addition, we added a special migration for Primo for this, because previously they were using the all teams configs for their default team. So now with that special migration, those configs will be moved to the Node team, where all the other users have them to make it more consistent. And the basic functionality of the webhooks and tickets hasn't changed, so that's still working as it did before. That's all for this feature. Back to you, Sharon.
What I wanted to say is that we had a thought about the need for a Node team and maybe swap it with something like a default team. Anyway, stay tuned, follow up on things, and we have an engineering initiated ticket for that. If anyone wants to be involved, feel free. So thank you, Victor, and we'll move to the next thing. One of the biggest thing we did this sprint was the Linux setup experience. We now have this, well, in 4.74, we will have this Linux setup experience. Dante, Jacob, and Lucas did a lot of work on it, and Dante will present it. Just something to note And I'm sure, you know what, I'll let Dante present it and I'll give my notes later. Dante, you want to take it?
Yeah, for sure. So here's a recording of our setup experience video. I'll just start it right away.
Hey, so this is for the ticket Linux Setup Experience. As an IT admin, I want to install software during the new Linux setup and show progress to my end user so that I can make sure that Linux workstations have required software before employees start working. So in this ticket, we're trying to sort of give Linux a somewhat similar experience to what we already have on macOS. You can see here that we have a team 1, in the Setup Experience tab. Under Install Software, we now have a Linux tab. Here, we can select some software. We have 2 packages here that I'm going to test with. We can see now that we have these packages selected, so these will be installed during Setup Experience for Linux users. You'll notice that currently Debian and RPM packages can be selected at the same time. When Setup Experience starts, it'll only queue the appropriate packages, so only Deb packages will be queued for Debian, and only RPM packages will be queued for RPM-based distributions like Fedora. Now, over here we have a host that will be added to the Team 1 team. You can see there's nothing currently. If we go here and apt install the installer, what should happen here is after this installs, the host will get enrolled in the team and it will kick off the setup experience process. There you go. So what's going to happen is Firefox is going to launch to the My Device page for this host when it detects that this is a setup experience host, and it's going to give us this page. And this page is going to stay up to date with whether or not the packages are installed. These packages specifically, I don't know if we're going to install it correctly, just because they're example packages. But what should happen here is we'll see the progress continue. We should get installing and then eventually done. This will all, of course, get more polished with time. This is sort of an MVP version. As of right now, the users can close Firefox. There's no proper way to lock users out as of right now. But another thing to note is that, oh, there you go, installed, is that if users go back to their My Device page, say through Fleet Desktop, it'll bring them back to this. They can't get around this to their regular My Device page until setup experience is done. Although when the setup experience is finished, it should then redirect them to the regular My Device page, and that will conclude the setup experience for that user. This is going to take a second for this guy to install. Yeah. And if for some reason, say, the user has uninstalled Firefox, we'll also fall back to Chrome or whatever the default browser is. Also important to note that if the user tries to reinstall Fleet, for example, if they did apt install -- reinstall, it will not rerun the setup experience. However, if the user completely uninstalls Fleet, for example, using apt remove, if the user installs Fleet again after that, it will then rerun setup experience. And the setup experience will not run once it's been run, once on the host, as long as Fleet's still installed. This is just taking some time because I'm doing it through a reverse proxy that is a little bit slow. I don't know if we have to keep watching this. The only thing that you'll notice is that after this finishes, it'll automatically get redirected to the setup, the regular host My Device page. Oh, there you go, just like that. And it's done. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Anything to add, Dante? Or Jacob and Lucas?
Just big shout out to Jacob and Lucas for all the work and the collaboration we did on this, and I'm very happy with the way it turned out. That's it.
I have a really quick question. Can the user see the setup experience page with the status after the fact, or is it hidden?
No, it's absolutely hidden afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, a few notes here. So again, thanks guys. Cool feature here. A few things to note is originally we planned to block the user so that they cannot do anything while the setup is being done, but we decided to not do that at least not in the first version, because we need to have some better experience with retries and stuff like that. So that may come in the future, but it's not here now. The user can do other things while the setup is going on. And one more thing is stay tuned. Next sprint, we will have the Windows setup. Will be very similar to the Linux. And yeah, that's it on this. So moving on, we have Jacob and Scott working on the script batch details page, and I'll let Jacob take it right away.
All right. Thank you, Sharon. So I'll start just with looking at dog food. So we've got this kind of current infrastructure to run batch scripts on multiple hosts. Here's dog food. I just ran a hello world script on all of your computers. Sorry, not sorry. So basically, when you want to see the results of a script like this and you click on this row, we see this summary modal that, tells us a count of hosts in each status and gives us a link to the host page. Pretty standard kind of flow in the Fleet UI, and then similar for finished. So this is dog food again, but we wanted to give a little bit more of an informative experience for IT admins and security engineers to see the results of this process. So we have the story, which is, as a Fleet user, I want to see a page where all batch script details will be presented so that I can have a better outlook on all batch scripts scheduled, running, or finished in one place. And that's just the PR. What that looks like now is, so I'm now on my local host, which is running main. We see the same page. I just ran a similar Hello World script a few minutes ago, and we've got our started, scheduled, and finished. And when we click through, we now, instead of that modal, see this glorious script batch details page that has a lot of dynamic behavior depending on the state of the script. So just to go back, interesting. Look into that. But we use the back button and we're good. So we see this is a script under the started, in the started state. And we'll see here that we've got number of hosts targeted, how many have responded so far, and when it was started. We can see the script that was run. And we've got tabs here for each state of, for each category, each group of hosts, for the hosts in each state of running of this script. So these are all the hosts that have run this script. And if we click on the row, we can see the output of that host. These are OS query perf hosts. So obviously we get some nonsense here instead of hello world. If we click on the host name, we go to the host details page. And then similar for the error states. Pending, we don't have any script output, so we'll just see the host details when we click on the row. And similar for incompatible, this empty row is a figment of the OS query perf, and we have empty states for all of these tabs as well. And then if we look at a script that has been scheduled but hasn't run yet, we see when it will start. Again, we can see the script and similar details there, and finished. We get when it was completed and show script. And this all consumes a new script batch host results API built by Scott. So that's how this all works. And I'll pass it back to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Jacob and Scott. Any questions about this?
I was wondering about the clock. Can you talk a little bit about that, Jacob? Like, how does it work? How is it calculated? How is it actually, what's the criteria for it being complete?
I can talk to
So you mean the tab, the completed tab, the finished tab?
Where it showed the amount of time that the batch had been running.
Pull this up again. So here, like when it was completed.
Yes. But I thought it showed like started 42 minutes ago or something like. Okay, so this is how long ago it was started, is what that clock shows.
Yeah, it varies depending on the state of the script. So if it's started but hasn't finished, we get when it was started. Um, if it's been scheduled, we get when it is scheduled to start, and finish, we get when it finished. And I don't know exactly the criteria for determining whether the whole script batch is finished. Scott maybe can speak to that.
Yeah, so finished can mean one of two things. It can mean that it was canceled by the user, in which case we mark it as finished immediately, or it can mean that there's no longer any pending hosts. So every host has either run the script either successfully or with an error, or has been marked as incompatible with the script because it's not the right platform, or because the host doesn't have scripts enabled, or if the host was individually canceled by the user, because you can go and find the individual hosts and cancel the script on those. Um, so if the sum total of those equals the number that was targeted and there's no longer any pending ones, then there's a job that runs periodically to check for that and marks the script as finished, the batch is finished.
So it could be running forever if a host never comes back online.
As Rachel just said in the chat there, yeah, we'll probably add a timeout so that I mean either to individual scripts and to the batch as a whole to determine like how long you should wait to consider this thing finished.
That's really what I was driving at with my question in the chat. So thank you.
One other small follow-up to that is what happens if you delete a host before it runs the script?
So if you delete hosts, they get removed from the targeted amount. So if you had a batch that was scheduled on 5 hosts and it ran on 3 of them and you deleted the other 2, then we would mark that as finished. Or if you deleted all of them, then it would mark as finished and you'd see like 0 out of 0 in the results. So that edge case is handled by just removing it from the batch.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you again, guys. So next we have something from the community. One of the benefits of being open source is that we are very much we are related to community, and quite often we get things from the community. The next one is about IAM, adding IAM authentication for MySQL and Redis. Scott made it production worthy and will present it.
All right. Yeah, so this is not the right one. So the story is an oldie but goodie, number 1817. As a security engineer, I want Fleet to use Amazon's IAM authentication for MySQL and Redis so that I can use a form of authentication that's stronger than basic auth. And like Sharon said, this is mainly the work of a community member, Jonathan Rudenberg. They did an excellent job on this. Not only, creating the code for the authentication, but putting together some really excellent test harnesses, because in order to test this stuff out, you really have to have the resources on AWS. You have to have Elasticache. You have to have a MySQL RDS instance, and neither of those things, you can create them on local stack, but to do IAM authentication on them isn't really supported by local stack. So you really have to use real instances, which the the bulk of my work on this was mainly just testing that out. I don't have a real demo for this, but I can go through a little bit of just what the updates are as far as the new options in Fleet. So you'll see now that for MySQL, you can now specify a region. Specifying the region is right now the way to indicate that you want to use IAM, because the combination of not having a password specified and having a region is what we use to indicate that we're going to attempt to use IAM for authentication. It's possible in the future it might relax this so that you don't even have to specify the region. It can use the default one on your instance, but for now we're making very explicit about it. So if you specify this region and you don't specify a password, we will attempt to authenticate using IAM, which will either use the credentials that are on your instance. It can use credentials from the environment, however you would like to specify those. You can also specify a role now. So if the IAM user that you have either on the instance that you're connecting from or an environment, if it doesn't have permissions to directly access the RDS instance, you can specify a role for that user to assume that should have those permissions, and then it can connect that way. And lastly, you can also specify an external ID to supply with that role if you're connecting from a third party. This is useful for that. Similarly, for Redis, we now have the Redis region that you want to connect to, the cache name of the Elasticache instance that you want to connect to, and similarly, you can specify a role and an external ID if you want to use IAM to connect to those instances. We will, oh, this got dropped out because it was added accidentally, but there's a sneak preview of a future feature also that Jonathan had a PR for that we're reviewing now for specifying the fleet server private key using IAM, using the secrets manager. And I think that about covers it. So big shout out to the community for supplying this to Jonathan. Thank you very much. And back to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Scott. And with the millions of views we have for this, I'm sure Jonathan will hear you. So thank you. The last thing we will not demo, and it's kind of old news, but I do want to mention it. Rachel Perkins and Jacob worked a few releases ago on a very nice feature for software install and uninstall stuff, mainly the stuff that the software team presented. So we will not present here, but there is a video that shows things that were not demoed at the time. Since this is old news, I will not demo it here, but feel free to go into the document and see the video. I think there's a lot of good information from Rachel and Jacob. And that will conclude the features part. I'm guessing back to you, George, or directly to Tim?
Sure thing. Over to Tim.
Over to Tim.
With
That works. That works. Thank you. All right, we got a handful of things to demo today. I think the first is probably the biggest story of the sprint. Edit software icon. Actually, a surprising amount of complexity in here. I want to point out we have icons everywhere. And so there was a large surface area to cover here. I'm going to pass this off to Rachel.
Everybody, happy Friday. So here's our major feature that both Constantine and I worked to get full stack running both on the UI and via GitOps. So the goal of this story is, as an IT admin, I want to add a custom icon for my software so that my end users can easily find the software that they need on the My Device self-service page. It sounds pretty simple, but it actually is quite complex on how we already use icons, how we already grab icons, and then overriding that to add our own custom icons and host those and grab those everywhere as well. So here is what the UI looks like. If you wanted to create a custom icon, you need to be on a specific team. And on that team, you need to look at a software that is installable, so is in the team's inventory. For example, I have Firefox here that is available for install. You're going to click on that, and when you get to this page, you're going to see this new icon to edit an icon next to the name of the software. So if you go here, you have your PNG picker up top and then a preview down below. This is a client-side validation. So if I wanted to click on like a really old school icon of Firefox, it will only let me choose a PNG here. And if you choose something that is outside the specified dimensions, so if it's not square or if it's too small or too large, for example, this beautiful Linux penguin, you're going to get some client-side error. Cool. So once you choose your icon, so I'm going to do this old school one, you'll see the preview down below, and this is what it looks like in the Fleet UI. And you'll also see in another tab what it would look like on the self-service page. So for your end user, they'll see the icon in the self-service section or in the software section of their end user page. Click save and you'll automatically see it updated here. If you want to edit it, you can go ahead and switch out icons quickly. So maybe you like the fancy new one. And if you want to delete it, you can go ahead and just trash it, and it will default to whatever Fleet already has as its default. Sweet. There are some limitations. So these icons, we tried to get them as many places as possible in a 2-week period. So we currently have them available on the software titles page. So if I were to look up Firefox right now, you'll see I have my new icon. You can see a bunch of my new icons actually if I just look at all of them here. I did a bunch of black and white ones just for funsies. So those are now updated. So you'll see it on this page. You'll also see it on the host details page, both for software. So if I were to type in Postman, you'll see it there. And as well as in the library, you'll see all the icons in there as well. Where else? And you'll see it in the self-service page here. So you can see it up in the update section, down below in the self-service section, in the software section here. And then the one limitation that we have is we did not have the ability to hoist them into the software versions. So if you were looking at a specific version, you wouldn't see the new icon. It's going to take a lot more work to get that going. And then also in vulnerabilities. So if we had a vulnerable software, I don't know if Postman is vulnerable or any of these are vulnerable. Let's see. You're not going to see the icon there as well. So yeah, and lots of backend changes. Oh, one more thing. If you were in GitOps mode, that's a good question. So if you were changing your management, so the UI does not allow you to edit because you are in GitOps mode, and you are looking at a software that is a custom package, company portals, custom package. We have this view YAML modal here. You can see that the YAML that we provide also includes an icon URL path for you to put your icon in as a example YAML. And if you wanted to download your icon, you can click on this link right here, and it's going to download as the suggested file name for that icon. And I think that is it for us. If anybody wants to jump in and add anything, feel free. Cool.
All right. Thank you very much. Great work there. Shout out to Constantine on all the back end work. That was it ended up being pretty huge. Next up, we have Ian. We got all our a bunch of back end folks, Ian, Max, and Constantine.
Cool. And let me move things around so I'm sharing the correct deal here. And for once, I did not forget to unmute. Okay, that is that screen. Cool. All right, so first off here, we have, as an IT admin, I want to specify multiple software or custom packages in one YAML file so I can reuse those across teams and edit in one place. This comes from a PR from concept here is that if you have, say, an auto-generated set of packages that you want to throw into GitOps, a little bit easier to define them as a list and then import that into your team while keeping the team file as is otherwise. I'm going to demo all these various GitOps issues as one bit. So let's take a look at a couple other issues here. So skip over this for a second. We moved around setup experience, well, copied in that case, labels, self-service, and categories from the package level to the team level in GitOps based on some feedback that we got, including internally, for example, from Alan. Idea there being that whether something is available for self-service or host targeting or categories may vary from team to team. And instead of having to specify install and install scripts, etc., multiple times in multiple software YAML files just to get the self-service tag correct or the like, elevating those to the team level would allow you to specify the things that are specific to the package, like, again, pre-install query, uninstall script, install script in one place and reuse that particular code. This also gets rather powerful with the multi-package behavior because they do work together where you can say have 2, 3, 4, 5 packages defined at once and then have self-service, etc. applied to all of them. One thing to note here is this setup experience bit. Going back here, previously the way that setup experience was defined is you would go into your YAML controls, macOS setup software, and provide either App Store app IDs for VPP or package paths or SHA-256 hashes for software. And that meant that you could not define a fleet maintained app by slug in GitOps and then use it in setup experience. With this change, we're moving that self-service flag to be on the team kind of software package representation alongside labels, categories, and self-service. So that way, and this also applies to fleet maintained apps. So if you want to specify something as being part of setup experience, you'll now do it there. Before I demo, I will note that these changes here in particular are BC break and an experimental part of the GitOps YAML. After I demo, I'll hand it over to Max, who has a tool that will allow you to migrate your existing YAML files to get compatibility with the 4.74 release that has these changes. Of note, we are not breaking the existing macOS setup experience way of defining software packages for custom packages, at least. And that does work if you specify a path to a file that has multiple packages in it. But yeah, at this point, the preferred way and the way that will be documented soon enough here is going to be specifying setup experience as a flag on the package itself rather than elsewhere in the team. With that, I'm going to swap over to my editor and show what this looks like. So what we've got here, this is super standard. This will actually not work. And we've got an error here of saying why. So let's fix that. I've already actually added setup experience and self-service here, as well as in fleet maintained apps. If I run this, then that will run through. So that demos that piece. Now let's actually add another package in here. And for convenience, we'll do this because we've got a open bug on this. I believe we're just going to document the behavior that we don't deduplicate these things. It's last in wins. Let's set the install script here. This is /lib package. Hold on. There we go. That'll allow us to demo this better. Run GitOps there. And make sure that I got my lib teams. There we go. Key thing here is we have an array of software packages here instead of a single one, and the previous format, as I just demonstrated, is still supported. So no need to migrate there. In the UI, we will be specifying this array style format when you hit the show YAML button within GitOps mode. And that is it from me. I will hand it over to Max to talk about the YAML migration tool.
Oh, wrong button. Hello. All right, here we go. Can people see that? Somebody give me a thumbs up. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. So this is going to be a less glamorous demo for sure, but I think Ian kind of just hit on a lot of it, which is right now in the software files, right, we have all these fields. The backward compatibility break is removing all these into right here in the team files, which is obviously for customers that have a lot of software is a painful migration process. So what started off as like, just a small one-time tiny, tool just to move these fields over there turned into quite a lot. So I have it aliased here, but it's called GitOps Migrate. And at a high level, what it's capable of doing is formatting your YAML files, actually migrating them to this, to apply these breaking changes, backing up and restoring. And the backup and restore process is actually pretty cool. It checksums in flight, verifies on both sides, actually burns hash files into the archive. So that's pretty cool. But that's a side point. Now to actually do the thing here, this is just our standard Fleet internal IT and security directory with all our own GitOps stuff in it. So again, these are two files we've got here. So I'm just going to run that real quick. We'll do gm migrate GitOps. And that's going to do the thing. And we'll notice now, right, this file is now empty. And all the fields that we expect are now present here. And we see a diff of about 22 files. All similar changes, right? Pretty straightforward stuff. And then you'll notice in the output of the migrate command, we've got a path to a backup archive, which we can also restore. And then we run that, and away goes the diff. And that is pretty much it. I think that's it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I think that wraps it up for all of those crazy GitOps features. Anything else I missed on that front before we get over to Haziel? Going once, going twice. All right.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Haziel. Now to Haziel for actually fleet control, MDM commands things. I think this would be a fun one. Go for it.
Should be pretty quick. Yeah, so this is this is one that I'm proud of, even though it's a small one, because it's something that I'd been trying to fix for a while, and we were finally able to do it. So that was pretty pretty gratifying. But the user story is, as an IT admin, I want to get an MDM command result in a vertical format so that I can read and copy long command payloads and outputs more easily. So I'm going to show a quick video. Do y'all see like an editor in the screen share?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, sweet, thanks. So this is what the output for fleetctl get MDM command results used to look like. You can see that it would try to format it as a table, but unless you had a very big screen or unless you command minus to make your font way smaller, the output would basically always overlap and extend past what the screen could draw. So you end up with this weird, kind of garbled output. And then even if the output did fit, so if you had a big screen or if you made your font really small, actually selecting this text was very difficult, or you really couldn't do it because each this table that's rendered as it's like each line is its own line basically. So like all of this text is on the same line. So if you tried to copy just this like XML version 1 part, you would end up copying also test max, max mini, blah, 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 blah. Like you'd copy the entire line. So, and often when we're like debugging and trying to send stuff over Slack, it's important to get the payload out or get the result of the command out and, be able to send it in a message really quickly. So just kind of a thing, like a little a rock in the shoe, so to speak. And so now what we have, so you can see here, I'm just going to run the same command for this other command that I ran earlier. And now the output is in this kind of vertical format. So you can see that there's the title of each field, so the ID and the time, etc., the payload, and then the results. And very importantly, you can now just select all of this text and copy it and then paste it wherever and do whatever you want with it. So it's a lot easier to kind of send this data around quickly. It also lets you do something cool, like if you have a lot of output, you can pipe it into less, and then you can kind of like scroll around and see what's going on. So yeah, it's a small thing, but it is a big quality of life improvement. I was doing a lot of research for the upcoming in-house apps, like installing in-house apps on mobile devices story that we're designing currently. And this was a huge time saver because I had to send a lot of MDM commands while I was doing that. And it was very easy to copy and paste results and send it in Slack and kind of be able to show people what's going on. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That wraps it up for the software team. Back to you, George.
Alrighty, then we're going to jump into improvements and bug fixes. I'll go ahead and present for the MDM team. Just two major things to point out. Carlo fixed this bug where pending ABM devices were still being included for the missing hosts tracker if you had your host expiry set to a certain number of days. And since the time that you had hooked up your ABM device and they had been pending for that many days, after that point, they were currently incrementing the missing hosts tracker, but they are now no longer included in that metric. And then the highlight here from Jordan is that with macOS Tahoe coming out, we tried to use, we tested all of our normal workflows, and we noticed that the Swift dialog based integrations that we have, which include macOS setup experience and macOS migration, both had just formatting issues that were weird. But it was as simple as updating to the latest Swift Dialog. Swift Dialog has fixed all of those issues in their latest version. So most of these bug fixes were resolved by incrementing to the latest Swift Dialog version as the version that we will package with Fleet D 1.48. So this is all merged into main, but not quite in the server yet, because it requires an agent update. And so that should be coming out with plenty of time before Tahoe is officially released. And that's it for MDM bug fixes. Over to Sharon.
Okay. Thank you, George. And looking and seeing that we have 25 minutes-ish, divided for two teams, it's 10 minutes. So I'll let people read their own bugs. And take a few minutes if you want to delay on something that's more interesting than the others. Feel free to do it. Victor, I'll let you start.
Thanks, Sharon. I'll try to be quick. So first one is fixing an issue in GitOps with MDM Apple profiles. Thanks for Brock for reporting this. Second issue is we've had this issue with duplicate scripts. So that means if you have two scripts that are exactly the same in a database, that there's a bug associated with that. If you try to edit one of them, the other one will magically edit as well. And a similar issue is if you edit a script to make it look the same as a different one, that's not going to work. So both of those issues have been fixed, so we can now fully support, actually have duplicate scripts, basically same content, different names. Next one, so this was a kind of database performance issue. We have a customer that's doing a lot of live queries. They were kind of filling up their database, and things were slow when they were running a live query. So this change adds an index for faster lookup, as well as a cleanup job to clean up one of the tables that's not urgently needed. Next one thing is one of our customers has been using the Linux lock scripts, and he saw some issues specifically in Ubuntu GDM, which is the default. So we kind of modified the lock and unlock scripts to kind of do a better visual experience. Specifically, what we're doing now in Ubuntu GDM is dropping down into a text-only mode. So when the Linux is locked, it drops down to text-only mode, and it's not hitting these UI issues anymore. And this one is also a performance issue. So if we have a large number of script results, which could happen now that we have batch scripts, things were taking really slow to get the latest script result. So this change adds an index and an optimization that greatly speeds up this lookup. Next one. This was related to the story that I did for the other workflows. So that was a small bug fix there. And this was also a deadlock issue that Janice reported. That was fixed. And then a few developer experience. So we are kind of trying to proceed with, making OpenTelemetry a first-class citizen for our visibility. So making progress there. We pulled in this library, a local version of this library for our TPM HTTP message signature story with some fixes that we needed. Those fixes have made it to the upstream, so we are now officially using the upstream version of that library. And then an error that I fixed, an error and some flaky tests I fixed during my on-call here. That's it for me. Back to you, Sharon.
Okay, thank you, Victor. And I don't think Juan is on the call, so I'll present for him. I'll just read out the bugs quickly. So Juan fixed a few bugs this sprint, a deadlock during GitOps run, and I encourage everyone to go into the bugs and see if they want, but I'll just read it out. So deadlock during GitOps run, GitOps checkbox status does not stay after saving changes in source replica MySQL environment, fix that. we had a UI issue where on the activity feed box was moving from left to the right side after some software installation. So fix that too. Blank email field in API login generates an unclear activity entry. And last one, deleted policies still showing in failed policy count. So remove them from the count. That's it for Juan. And I'll move to Scott now. Scott, you want to take it?
Sure. Sorry about that. Okay. So, number one on the list here, fleet control generate GitOps doesn't handle emoji only team names gracefully. So previously the generate GitOps tool, when it encountered team names or really any file names that had unusual characters, it just replaced them with dashes or removed them entirely. And during a test, we found that, or I think Janice found that if you had a team name that was just an emoji and you had multiple team names that were just emojis, they would all get crunched down into the same file name by this tool, which obviously is not good. So the decision was made to support emojis in the file names themselves. And so now that's what we do. Whether this is going to turn out to be a good decision or not, time will tell. But we can now generate file names for GitOps using the generate GitOps tool that has emojis and other Unicode characters in them. What am I doing here? All right, so the rest of these are pretty straightforward. This is a bug fix for our SQL query parser on the front end. We use a third-party dependency for this that I am pushing upstream changes to, but right now we have kind of an inline sort of forked version of it. So hopefully after the next version of this is released, we should be able to get back to the upstream. Fix an issue where the user form in different places for setting a password had different requirements. So got those all into conformity. And fixed a bug that was introduced in the last version of Orbit that caused some system issues on certain Fedora installs where the failure of launching the desktop would basically end up generating more and more kernel keyrings until it ran out of keyring space. So that should be fixed in the latest release of Orbit. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Scott. And Jacob next.
Hey, this is just a small UI improvement. There was an empty element causing an extra gap to be applied. No need to really go into any detail with it, but just fix that.
Okay, sounds good. And last but not least, we have Dante.
Hey, mine is also not super huge. It was just fleetctl. If you ran dry run with the debug flag, it would sometimes output binary to the console, and that's no longer going to happen. That's it.
Okay, and that concludes all the orchestration work. So back to you, team.
There we go. All right, we're going to keep going here with our last 15 minutes. I'm going to cover these first handful of bugs here. Post count discrepancy on software packages. Bad things happening there. Now they are good. Output from gotcha. This is actually we got Brock on the call today. There is a fix here. I believe an API fix. Next up is a false negative for PowerShell. This one actually I remember was a bit tricky. Definitely some weird NBD things going on there, and a small API change, or I shouldn't say small, a correction API to better reflect empty software on this side. Next up, Max, you want to talk through yours?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, these are pretty straightforward. The first one, so I'm actually pretty sure this is a bug in MinIO that I found. I'm just now remembering I didn't open an issue for this with their repository, but I should do that. I found unique conditions where if you launch min.io locally with a bunch of specific settings, it enforces limitations on file upload size. So the fix here was pretty straightforward. We basically just implemented upload manager instead of just performing, a put operation on the code path that actually ships the installer. So that one's pretty straightforward. The second one, that was a weird one as well. So for those unfamiliar, we parse HTML for our Mac Microsoft Office vulnerability feed information. Microsoft recently updated the style of their website, which broke some state transitions and caused certain Office products to kind of be skewed. So it was like, a CVE that actually impacted Microsoft Word might show up in our vulnerability data as impacting Office or something else. So that was a fun one, but that's been resolved now as well.
Cool. Thank you
That's
very
it for me.
much.
Mhm.
Rachel, you want to talk through yours, and you want to share your screen?
I'll share. Yeah, so this one is a weird feature improvement. I moved it in the improvement section because it's not quite a feature, I would say, but the goal of it was, as an IT admin, I want to show my end users instructions on how to open software from the My Device self-service tab so that my end users can quickly start using the software without having to find the software locally. So if you're going to your self-service page, here it is. You might notice that we now have this more drop down. So if we start adding more and more actions here, we're going to be using this drop down, and you can see if a software is installed either on a Mac or Windows. There will be a pretty basic static how to open the software modal. And this is a customer request who wants to actually have a button that opens the software itself. However, that's highly risky and would take a lot more dev. So this is our first pass at this. You can also see it on, here's my Windows machine. Windows will have it as well. And if there is no how to open instructions, you'll see the uninstall button or whatever else might have you over here instead of a drop down. Other things that I worked on this sprint, there was a few unintended behaviors. So when looking at software versions, we were showing updated never, but actually we never get that updated timestamp. So we removed that. Software title header was missing on Tarball's title pages. So that's back up there. Vulnerabilities were being double counted when looking at software titles based on the version. So that is now fixed as well. And then 3 small, tiny styling bugs were also fixed. All right, back to you, Tim.
Cool. And wrapping things up, we have Ian with one last bug.
Yep.
Before the dance party. Sorry, go ahead.
So issue in this case was that if you installed a .deb and then uninstalled it, those package receipts are still in the dev underscore packages OS query table. We were not accounting for that in the auto install query. So if you installed and then uninstalled, then it would still say like, hey, there's no action required here, and the policy would pass. This minor tweak fixes that to where if you install and uninstall, then the policy will pick up that it should ignore your uninstalled package and get that installation underway. This was specific to auto install policies. Our detail queries for software inventory do the correct thing and have for a while. That's it.
Great. And back to you, George.
Alrighty, that concludes our sprint demos for Sprint 46 Palladium version 4.74 release candidate. Probably will build